In progress.
Yes. So now we are moving towards Spring framework. So first and foremost, we want to understand why we need any kind of framework and why we need Spring especially. So yeah, if we know Java, we can create desktop application, we can create web application, any kind of application mostly we can create with the help of Java programming language itself. But just for example, let's talk about web application because most of the time we are creating web application, and in the web application we have two parts, one is front end and one is back end. So mostly back end is created using Java programming language. So the core technology provided by Java community, Java uh, is GSP and servlets. GSP and servlet, Java server pages and servlet. So it is very much true, we can create a web application whether it's a backend. We can use servlets, we can use GSP. But in that case, everything or lots of things I have to do by our own. I want to give an analogy so you and me are able to understand in a better way. Suppose uh, I belong I belong a good a rich family, okay, and I just shift to the new town, new city for study purpose or employment purpose. Okay, so let's for example I shift for a study purpose. I am living in a hostel type area. So apart from my study work, for my fooding and lodging, I have to manage all the things. For cooking my food, I'm the one who went market, buy raw materials, come back to the home, put put things into the kitchen, and preparing the raw materials for cooking my food. So everything is doing by myself only, by myself only. So it will take some time, it will take effort, and it might be very much possible I'm good in cooking, but I'm not good in bargaining. I'm not good in buying raw materials. Okay, and it takes so much time, and every day I have to do same, whether I'm cooking chicken or any other vegetable or any other curry. I have to do almost same thing every time. So it's take time taking actually. But if my father arrange a servant for me, if my father arrange a servant for me, and the job of servant is to do common task, like he is expert to go to went market and buy raw materials, groceries, vegetables, and everything. And he is expert in preparing the raw materials. And the only thing I need to do to cook accordingly. Okay. So now, can you tell me, my life become easier or not?
Yeah, very easy.
Very easy, because most of the task is done by my servant. The only thing I have to cook my things, and things are ready. Things are provided by the uh, servant. He does all the common task in a very well manner. So by this I will save my time.
Server.
Sorry.
You need a server.
Server no. Here server is here servants is a framework.
Okay.
So I can more focus on my study or my work because it's take less time to cook. because I don't need to prepare raw material, I don't need to buy, I don't need to purchase, I don't need to went market. Everything is done by servant only. Okay, so one way creating web application is using JSP servlet without servant. Core technologies, everything I have to do, handling the request, response, mapping into one form to another, so many things I have to do only. And whether I am creating project 1, project 2, project 3, most of the time I have to do same things almost every time. So software developers who invested their whole lives in the development, they realize most of the time 70% 60% tasks are common for every web application. So why we are forcing a developer to manage to do these things every time? So they created pre-cooked or raw software that is called framework. So as a Java developer, I can use framework to boost up my performance. I only need to focus on the business logic because most of the task is done by framework itself. Yes or no? Here framework
Yes.
is like servant. Okay. So before Spring, there are lots of framework which are very much popular. Among that, one is Struts framework. Struts, Apache Struts. Initially, they launched Struts 1. After they launched Struts 2. And that was very popular at that time. Everybody want to learn Struts and every company want to switch on a Struts. And there was a huge boom. But in 2005 around, Rod Johnson, there's a man who introduced an framework, Spring framework. And Spring gets more popularity day by day. And I want to tell you, nowadays Spring is the most widely used framework in Java community, Java technology. 99% companies uses Spring for their web application development and all. Okay, and it's a standard nowadays for the Java. You should know Spring, otherwise you won't get job. So Spring framework is the most widely used framework nowadays. This part is coming. This part is okay. The next thing is why Spring framework getting so much proper popularity. Again, there are lots of advantages. I don't want to go in that side, but I want to discuss one or two. The first part is dependency injection. The most popular feature and most widely used feature of a Spring Boot is dependency injection. Okay, definitely we will try to understand dependency injection by examples. Don't worry. Second is AOP, aspect oriented programming. Aspect oriented programming. Okay, and lots of things. Don't worry. It's a lightweight. And so many things. So I'm just coming on the programming part. But the problem with Spring is Spring um, evolves in a very short time. Okay, and there are lots of things. Sometimes there is a multiple way to do the same thing. So problem is learning the Spring is not an easy thing by itself, by own self. Because when you open a tutorial, some tutorials using different version of Spring, some tutorial using different way of configuration. So for using Spring, we need to configure Spring. We have to configure Spring application, then we can use it. For configuration, we need Spring related jars. So no problem. Jars are available on the internet. We can use it without any problem. But the configuration can be done by different ways. Initially, when Spring launched, the only way was XML configuration, XML based configuration. First and foremost, XML based configuration. In this, we create a spring.xml file where we create predefined tags like bean tag and all. It was verbose and error prone, and personally I don't like XML. I don't know the reason, but I don't like XML. Nowadays we are using annotation or Java based configuration. It's a great thing to configure the application. Fine. But I'm telling you, if I want to create a Spring application which do some web related functionality and connect with the database, might be I will take a whole day. It will take whole day or couple of days to working properly. Creating of application was a great problem for any developer. It was not very much easy to create a Spring application because there are lots of things coming to the Spring. So it was a pain. So they introduced Spring Boot. Spring Boot. Spring Boot. What is Spring Boot? Again, Spring Boot is a new way to create, or you can say Spring Boot is an easy way to create Spring related stuff. You can create almost any kind of Spring project with the help of Spring Boot within a minute. How much time?
In a minute.
Within a minute. Even you who don't know the Spring much, you can create a Spring Boot application, a production grade application, a running application within a minute with the help of Spring Boot. So interviewer mostly ask what is Spring and Spring Boot. So Spring is a framework which provides so many functionalities In the Spring umbrella, we have different modules. Spring Framework modules. There are lots of modules, lots of components. First is Spring MVC. MVC, Model View Controller. That is, we can create websites. Spring REST web services. Okay, let me write few things. There are lots of things we can do with Spring Framework. Lots of things. I am going to write few. Spring MVC, Spring REST, Spring JDBC. There is a different own way to use JDBC with Spring Data, JPA, Java Persistent API. We can use Hibernate with the help of Spring. We will talk about that. Spring Security, we can secure our application.